So I have worn this shirt quite a few times, and a lot of the times people have said, I really like your shirt. But I know that although most of my interactions have been positive, that not everyone feel that way. And some of you who are watching, you may even feel triggered by watching and seeing this shirt. And what I say to you is that I totally understand. And we may have an uncomfortable conversation today, and that is okay because that is what we do sometimes. But we're going to do it in a safe and a respectful environment because that is what I want for us to do, to be able to open our hearts and our minds today to say, okay, I can listen to it. I may not agree, which I understand, and that is okay, but I'm going to be respectful with it. So if you have any comments or anything like that, feel free to put them in there. But I am going to say right now, too, as well, is that hurtful, ugly, nasty, negative comments will not be tolerated. That is one thing that we do not encourage or do here. And we will always lead with understanding and love and kindness. So if you have anything, feel free to let me know. But that is what we're going to lead with today. So, what I'm going to discuss today is what this shirt means. And it is deeper than Pride Month. So, I want to make sure that you continue watching and watch till the end because there are some other things that I'm going to touch on that you may not even realize. I am Dr. Ashley Booth. I'm a board certified family medicine physician, and I am the owner of Healing Beyond the Stethoscope Primary Care, where we provide personalized, holistic care. I'm also the host of this show, Lessons Beyond the Stethoscope. So, welcome. And we provide practical health tips and tools that you can use in your everyday life because what we understand is that life ultimately affects your health. Now, listen, I was recently in a situation where I was with this couple and I had an interaction with them, and these people had worked my last nerve. I'm just going to be honest. Now, listen, this was not in a professional sense. They were not my patients. I want you to completely understand that they were not my patients. This was in a more of a personal situation. And when I say they worked my last nerve, somebody was like, like they are stepping on my nerve with stilettos, kind of worked my last nerve. Like I was like, I'm done with this situation, right? Well, they needed some assistance and they called someone else to come and help them. And when that person showed up to help them, they said, yes, this is my sister in law. And for a second, I was like, did they just say what I thought they said? Because maybe I misheard them. And then I was like, no, that is what they said. These were two wives. They were two wives and they introduced their significant other as their sister in law. And in that moment, I was upset and I was sad because although these were not my favorite people in the world, right is right and wrong is wrong. And I understood that in that moment, they were saying, I don't know who we can trust. And I don't know if the person who's going to help us is going to have an issue with our relationship, even though our relationship has nothing to do with the help that we need in this moment. Even though it has nothing to do with that, I don't know how they're going to treat us. I don't know if we're going to be safe. I don't know if we're going to get good service. That is some of the things that I started to think that they were thinking about because it is real, because a lot of them are not safe. Let's just call a thing a thing. A lot of them have faced violence because of who they are and not because of what they've done. They could simply be walking down the street and someone doesn't like them because of who they are and say, I feel I should be able to say hurtful, nasty things to you, or I can physically assault you and hurt you because of that. So, because of that, and in that moment, I immediately felt like, oh my gosh, this is like not right. And that is one of the reasons why I was like, you know what? I know that there are still some challenges that are there with that community, and there's still work that needs to be done. And as a physician, my priority has always been to create a safe space and a space where there is no judgment, because that is what is important. And because I've seen what happens when you don't have that. I've had people that say, you know what, it feels like that doctor didn't like me, or that nurse or healthcare provider didn't like me. They said, you know what, they didn't listen to me, or I feel like I didn't fit in. And it's not because they were a part of the LGBTQ community. No, it was because maybe they were obese. There are a lot of patients that I have that are obese that said, listen, they automatically assume that I overeat. And we go through and I look and see how many calories they have a day. And I was like, this is not healthy. We need to figure out what else is going on. And they're like, exactly. Right. So when they walked in, though, they said, I felt like that doctor didn't even really want to listen to what I had to say. I felt they felt repulsed by me. And because of that, they were like, nope, you just need to stop eating. So eating so much, you need to exercise, blah, 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 and sent them on their way. Felt dismissed, right? What about race? I've had some people to tell me about that, or even socioeconomic. They felt like they didn't make enough money. They're like, listen, them people seem like I needed to make a lot more money before I could come in there and receive whatever kind of healthcare service that I need to receive. And that's not right. And as a healthcare provider, as a physician, my job is to leave bias at the door. Whatever it is that I believe, I need to leave it at the door, because I need to have no bias and no judgment when I walk in there, because that can affect how well you get treatment. And people say, well, I don't know if that's true. Doctors, you guys should know better. About doctors are people. Before we became physicians, we were people and we are still people. And if we don't check the peopling in us and those things that make us us before we walk on the other side of the door, and we carry in all of those other things with us, then that can affect how well of the treatment that you get. And one of the things that's making the news right now is Black maternal health and the deaths that are happening. Black women, African American women are 3 times more likely to die in childbirth than white women. And some people say, well, I guess it's probably because of like an education issue. They may not understand what's going on and they're not following what the doctor is saying. Or it could be social economic. They're poor, they don't have access, they can't get in and see the doctor, or they're not healthy. They have all these kind of health needs and there's some issues, and that's why. Someone said, okay, I tell you what, we're going to put all those things together and see if that's still an issue. So they compared Black women who were highly educated, that were in good health, that made good money, and said, okay, what are the results? They're still the same. They're still 3 times more likely to die in childbirth. And what does that tell you? When we took everything away, the issue is now we have a bias problem. And one of the things, and one of the people who came out and said, let's talk about it, was Serena Williams. Serena Williams, with her first pregnancy, she's one of those women that checked all of those boxes, and she's in that community. And she says, you know what? When I had my baby, I told them something is not right. And she continued to labor and do the things after she had her baby. And she said, okay, hold on now. I told you something is not right. She had to tell them a couple of times that she did not feel right. Something was not right in her body. Can she tell you this is exactly what's going on? No, I'm not a doctor, but I can tell you my symptoms, and I can tell you I know my body, and I know that these things are not right. And it took her advocating for herself, pushing for more, for them to say, oh my, you have blood clots. And she had that. Those were life threatening issues that, had they not continued to look, and had she not continued to press for them to look, she could have died because they were life threatening. So it does happen. We see it a lot. I've also seen it and heard it with my own ears. And I've heard it with my own ears. I've seen it with my own eyes, that doctors can interact with patients and you can tell that there's something off, because I'm like, you went in 5 different rooms and everything was fine, and then you came in here and something changed, and this patient looked different, there was a situation that was different, there may be a bias there. So just like I said, physicians have bias, like people have bias, right? Like you may have a bias and may or may not even know it. You could say, you know what, I don't like the color green. And you may not like the color green because in the first grade, some little girl, Sally, said that you didn't look good in green. So now you're like, you know what? I don't like Sally's and I don't like green. And that's because of a situation that happened. That's how biases show up. And as a physician, my job is to check that because, like I said, it could be a difference between life and death. And that life and death also can show up and it can say, okay, we don't have any support. And that is why we have to support, because when you don't have support, and it could be a life and death, the other thing is because of a trust issue. When you don't have trust, that can lead to a life or death thing. And the way that I see it show up is people will go and they will see another doctor and they will say, I don't trust what they said. I don't think I have X, Y, and Z. I totally understand. Let's do some research. Let's do some digging. Let's do some testing. Let's figure out what's going on. And then come to find out if they do have it, then I said, well, this is the treatment. These are your treatment options. This is why I feel like we should go with this versus that, blah, blah, blah. Or, these are your options. Which one do you decide and which one you want to do? A lot of times they do the same treatment that the other doctor had explained to them or had said that they should do, but because they didn't trust it, they didn't follow it. And when you don't follow it, you can die. And one of the biggest things that people are not doing, and African Americans, Black people, I'm noticing a lot right now, is blood pressure. Don't believe that you have high blood pressure. Don't believe that you need to take medicine for it. Don't believe a lot of these things because you don't trust the system. You don't trust a lot of things, but it is literally killing us because we are noticing that it is leading to heart attack, it is leading to stroke, it is leading to kidney problems and dialysis. All of these things are happening because of a lack of trust and a lack of support. And that is how people die. And so that is why I support people in need. And this is not new to me. I have been doing this for as long as I can remember. This is how I was raised. My family and my community was like, listen, we support other people. And then it just, once I started to kind of come into my own, I realized that's just me. When I see somebody who needs help, it doesn't matter. You need help because right is right and wrong is wrong. And when I look at it, I'm like, okay, how can I support you? What can I do to help? Because I understand that people are going to be different. People are going to come from a different background. They're going to come from different families. They're not going to grow up the way that I did. They're not going to talk the way that I talk. But at the end of the day, if they are in trouble and they need some help and I can do something about it, then that is what I am supposed to do. So I know that today has been maybe a little heavy for some of you because you're probably kind of kind of figuring out and wrestling with, okay, is this right or whatever. But what I would challenge you and what I would say to you is that open your hearts and your mind. And anytime you lead with love, you are going to do the right thing. The other thing that people say, well, you're talking about the LGBTQ community today and all that stuff. Listen, I've talked about a lot of communities that need help. I've talked about breast cancer awareness and survivors and thrivers in that community, because that's the community. I've talked about those who have been given a diagnosis and they have to go through and undergo hospice, and now hospice is their option. How do we navigate that? When it is Men's Health Month, we talk about some of the different issues that men face. So we talk about a lot of different communities because there are a lot of unique needs. But today, what I am saying is that this is one particular community. The LGBTQ community is one that absolutely needs some assistance and some support. And if you're wrestling with it and you say, I don't know, just say, okay, I tell you what, if I lead with love and I lead with kindness, where is that going to lead me? And when you do that, you're going to find out that you're going to do the right thing. So I just ask that we continue to keep a great community of love and support for others. If you have missed out on any of those other communities that I talked about, make sure that you subscribe so that you don't miss out. If you want to continue the conversation and talk to me about something else, you're free to reach out and let me know. But until next time, I am wishing you much healing, much love, and I will see you soon.